Hello, so this is part 2 of the inventory tutorial, where we will be finishing up the inventory that you see on screen now. And if you want to check out part 1, so you're able to learn how to create this inventory step by step, then there will be a link in the description and the pinned comment. But quickly before we get started, if you could go down below, hit that subscribe button and drop a like so YouTube can push this series and this tutorial to more aspiring game developers, then it would mean the world. But let's get started. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go to our slot and I want to add the little number that's going to be at the bottom so we can have the stackable items. And to do that, we're going to go within our panel here. We're going to click on the plus and we're going to add a label. Now this label is going to be the label that displays the number, right? So if we go to the text and we put in 99, which is the biggest number that, we could possibly show, well, it doesn't look good. It's way too big and it's not going to, be right. So to fix this, well, we can go down here to our layout and we can go down to our transform and we can change up our scale. Maybe we can size this in half and you can see that that's going to look a little bit better in the little corner down here. But if we go to the top, because as you can see, if we do 1, it's going to show that way, right? If we do this, then it's like, so if we have 1 item or if we have 2 items, it's going to look like this. But if we have 10, it's going to look like this. 10 looks right. 2 doesn't look right, right? So to fix that, we can go here and we can change our horizontal alignment to right. And then if you move this here, you can kind of see that when we change our text, it changes more correctly than it did before. And that's going to look good. And then if we 99 again, you can move this box here to squeeze 99 so it's the minimum size. We can go to our layout, we can copy the size and we can bring it up to the custom minimum size just like that, and that is going to be our box. So now we have the number and it's going to show based on however many items we have in it. But how are we going to keep track of the amount of items? Well, to do this, we're going to have a new inventory resource, or a new resource that's going to extend for every single slot, because we need to be able to, store the amount of each inventory item that we have. So if we go up to our script, we go to file and we go to new script, we can create a new script and we can name this just inventory slot.gd. And this is also going to extend a resource, right? So that's going to extend a resource. Then we can click create. And in this script, we're going to have a class name. And the class name is going to be our inventory slot. And every single slot is going to store and 2 exported variables. One's going to be whatever item the slot is holding. And whatever item it's holding is going to be an inventory item. And then it's also going to hold a variable for the amount of that specific item that it is holding. So we can say amount is going to be an int. And then that is going to be all good. We can save the scene. And then if we go to our inventory.gd script, so our main inventory script, you can see that our inventory is storing items. We do not want our inventory to store items anymore. We want our inventory to store slots. It's because the slots are going to store the items, but the inventory is going to store the slots. So we can change our variable to slots, and we can change our array to hold inventory slots and not inventory items anymore, right? So if we have to go to our inventory UI script, right? So if we go to our inventory here, and we can see our inventory UI slot script, this script right here, we're going to have to change up some stuff in here as well. Because in this, we have the function that updates our item, and it's going to update our item into inventory items. We want to update our inventory slot. So we can change this to slot. And then we can change, instead of inventory item, we can say inventory slot. And then we can say, we got to go in and change all of these variables. So we can say slot, but we got to do slot.item because we got to get the item that's in that slot, right? And then down here we have items. So we can say slot.item.texture. So we get the slot's item and then the item's texture that's inside of the slot that's being stored in that slot, right? So that's going to look good. Now in our inventory, or our player inventory, if we open up our player inventory, you can see that it's going to be all messed up. It's going to be completely reset because it doesn't hold items anymore. So it doesn't know what to hold. So we can go and we can change the size to however many slots we have. And then on each of these slots, if we say new inventory slot, maybe, let's see. So if we reload it, we open this up and then we go new inventory slot. Okay, so I'm not sure what exactly was happening there, but I went and I closed out a Godot. I saved the scene, I closed out a Godot, and we're basically in the exact same spot as we were before. I just closed out and then reopened the player's inventory just like this. And now you can see that if we click down and we click new inventory slot, it's going to add them. So just like we were doing before, it should automatically add them. For me, I don't know what it was doing. It was not adding them to the inventory. But if we go and we add an inventory slot to every single, section of the player inventories in the inspector, then this should work. So now our inventory is full of slots, and it's not just holding items in the slots. It's actually a slot, right? So this now has all resource slots, so that's going to work for what we're going to go, and we're going to make the insert function next. And to do this, we're going to go to our inventory script here, and then in this script, we're going to create a new function, and this function is going to be called insert. And what are we going to insert? Well, we're going to insert an item, and this item is going to be an inventory item, right? So we're going to use this here in just a minute. For now, we can go and we can pass, but we're going to come back in just a minute as we figure out what item and how we're going to, insert the item into this function so we can insert it into the script. Like, how are we going to pass through what item our player is collecting? Well, to do that, if we go to our player scene, we go to our player script, we have to go up here to the top, and we're going to have to, or first, we're going to have to, I lied. We're going to have to go to the top here in a minute. But right now, I want to go down to the bottom, and I want to create a new function. This function is going to be called basically our collect function. This function is going to send, okay, let me zoom in. So this function is going to be called our collect function. And what this function is going to do is this function is going to have an item, and this function is going to be called from, or let me show you what's going on. So our player has access to the inventory, right? Our player has access because we have our exported var up here, and we inserted it in the exported var of the player's inventory. So this is saying player's inventory dot insert. We're calling the function that we just made in the inventory script, and then it's going to pass through the item. So we got to get this item from somewhere. Where are we going to get this item from? Well, whatever item we're collecting is going to have to call the player dot collect function, and it's going to pass through that object's item, right? So if we save this scene, we go to our apple tree, we go up to the top of our apple tree, we have to assign what the apple tree's droppable is. Like, what is the collectible that the apple tree drops? So to do that, we can say collectible, or, well, this is going to actually, I don't know what I'm saying. This is going to be export var. I'm thinking, but not, doing what's at hand. So export var, and then we're going to have to say what item. So like, what's the item's resource? That's what we're going to save here. We're going to save the item's resource right here. So inventory item, just like this. And then we can go down here, and somewhere, or first we got to go to our 2D scene, and we're going to have to go to our apple tree, and we're going to see our item. We're going to have to load our item, or we can go to our inventory folder down here, open up our items, and we can drag our apple here. So now our apple tree holds the apple resource. So whenever we collect it, it's going to send to our player that we collected the apple resource, right? So if we go down here and we go right here, we'll go above the await get tree create timer, and we're going to call the player dot collect item, right? Just like that. So now it's going to send the item, and player is not declared. So to find the player, we can just go to the top, make a new variable player, and then for now it can be equal to null. And then whenever the player enters the area, so this is when the player enters the area, we can set player to equal to the body. So that is going to be how we're going to get our player. And then we can call player.collect item, and it's going to pass through this item, which is going to pass through our apple item. So it's going to pass through our apple resource, and then that's going to go to our player, right? So now it's going to come through here. So this is going to be the apple resource, and then it's going to call the inventory insert function, and that's going to call the apple resource, and it's going to show the apple resource. So now if we go to our inventory.gd, now we're going to have the apple resource as item. So every time we call item, that's going to be the apple resource. So how are we going to, actually insert this in? So we're going to have to figure out all of the scripts, and we're going to have to figure out all of the different slots that we have, and we're going to have to call, and we're going to have to update every single slot. So to do this, we are going to create a new signal, and this signal is going to be called update, because this is just going to be called when we want to update the slots, right? So in our insert function, we can say var item, and then, or this is kind of going to be slots. So var, but we have slots up there, so I guess we can say item slots. So var item slots equals slots, dot filter, and then we're gonna have to kind of go through and figure out how many slots we have. So function slot, and then we can say return. I'll explain how this works here in just a minute, but return slot dot item equals item. So then we'll say if item slots is empty, which means there's nothing in the slot, then I need a colon behind there, and then we'll say item slots 0 dot amount plus equals 1. So basically what this is going to do is if the quickest slot is open, so the first slot is open, then it's going to add a new item to that slot, and the amount is going to be equal to 0, and it's going to be in this slot, right? But if it's not, then we're going to have to figure out what slot that we're going to be in, because if it's not going to be full, then it's going to pick the second slot. Then if the second slot's full, it's going to pick the third slot. This is kind of what this part right here does. And then I'll kind of explain it here in a minute more though, but if we say else, and then we can say var, we can make a new var, and this var can be for not item slots. So those are basically full slots, but this is going to be for empty slots. So slots dot filter function slot return, and then slot dot item equals null. And then if we say if empty slots dot is empty, then we want the empty slots 0. So it's an array, right? Item equals item, and then we can say empty slots again 0 dot amount is going to equal to 1, because this means, so this part right here is for if we have an empty slot, if the slot's empty. This is for an already existing, so it's going to go and it's going to check if this item is already in a slot. So if it's going to go through all of our slots and check if item in that slot equals the item that we're placing in. So if the item in this slot is equal to whatever item that we're trying to add, then it's going to add it to the existing slot. If it's not, and the item that we're trying to add does not equal any slot, then we're going to have to create a new slot. So it's going to make that slot the item, and it's going to set that amount to 1, because this is the first item that we collected. And then if we exit all of this, we can say update.emit. We can just emit that update signal. And this signal, remember, we got to remember that this signal is going to our slot. So this is updating the slot UI. And then we're going to have to go to our inventory UI script up here. And then this is going to be in here. We have to change up some of this, because you can see that for I and range min inventory.items.size, this is items, inventory.items. We don't have items in our inventory anymore, right? So it's inventory.slots for there, and down here it's also inventory.slots. So this is kind of going to update the UI version of it. That's going to update the backend. This is going to update the UI. And then once we change this both to slots, we can go up to our ready function here. We can say, or we got to connect it. So we can say inventory.update, which is going to be connect to update slots. So whenever the update signal, so once the update signal is called, then we're going to connect that to our update slots. So we're going to call this. So whenever inventory, emits the update signal, we're going to go and we're going to call this, and we're going to update the actual slot UI, right? So that should work just as good as perfect. Now quickly, let's fix the visuals in our slot. So if we go to our inventory UI slot, we can see down here we added the label earlier, but we never made a variable. So for the variable, we can say an onReady var. And this onReady var is going to be the amount that is going to be like our text that's going to show. So the amount, this is going to be a label, and this is going to be equal. So if we get it's going to be center container slash, it's going to be inside of our panel, and it's going to be called our label, just like this. So this is going to be our amount display. Whenever our slot, or whenever there is no item in the slot, then we want our amount text dot visible to equal to false, right? We want it to equal nothing. And then down here, if we get our, means we have something inside of the slot. We want our amount visible dot text to be equal to true, just like this. And then we can say amount text dot text, and this text is going to be equal to a string of whatever the amount is. So the slot dot amount, which is the variable that we made earlier in our slot resource. And that is looking good. So now the number on our slot should update depending on how much the slot dot amount is equal to. So theoretically, if we play our game, everything should work. So if we play our world scene, it's not gonna work. And why is this? Well, this is not gonna work because we have update slots and we called it like this. This needs to be like this because this needs to be inside of our connect function right here. So we had it kind of a little bit messed up. But now if we go and click F6 in the world, so once you fix that, you click F6 in the world, it's gonna load up. Our game runs. We have our inventory that pops up. The numbers are not there. They're not visible. We collect an apple, just like this, and we open up our inventory. You can see it says 1. But usually when you have one item, you don't want it to say 1. But does it stack correctly? Well, that says 2. If we go collect another one, that's going to say 3, and it's stacking, pretty good. But how do you make an actual item for the inventory? So first, I'm going to fix what it's saying here about if we go to our slot, and then we say visible. We only want it to be visible. So we can say amount.text.visible equals, or we can just real quick, we can say if slot.amount is greater than 1, right? So if it's greater than 1, then we can say this would be visible, right? Just like this. So now if we play the world, then everything should work better. We can see that if we collect an apple, open up, it does not have a number. We collect another apple, then it does have a number. And now it's going to count up forever, just like that. 3, and then it's going to go on forever. But real quickly, that's basically the working inventory. I just want to go through very, very, very quickly how to create an actual object in case you're trying to add more objects to your game. So to do this, I'm going to make it very fast. So if we go here, we go to another node, we add a static body. This static body is going to be our stick collectible. And then in our stick collectible, we're going to have a sprite 2D. This sprite 2D's texture is going to be equal to our art in our environment, and it's going to be equal to our stick icon. And then on our variable, we can have an area 2D. This area 2D is going to be called our interactable area. And this is going to have a collision shape 2D on it. If we go to our 2D scene of it, we can see we have our stick, and we can set our collision shape to be the collectible area. So if our player walks within this area, then it's going to collect. We can create a new script to our stick collectible, and we can signal something from our interactable area to say if body is entered, and we'll send it to that script. And then in this script, we can go here, we can remove all of this stuff, and at the very top, we can say the export variable for our item. So this is going to say var item, and this item is going to equal a inventory item. And then we can say var player equals for now is equal to null. We can save this scene into our inventory, or well, actually I want to save this scene into our scene folder. And then in this little function here, we can say if the body that entered the area has method of player, then we want our player to equal the body, and then we have to signal collect, which is going to be a new function, right? Because this signal collect is going to be the function that basically just calls the player. Or actually we can change this up. So we can say, I guess I'm just gonna call player collect function. We'll just make a new function. We can just, it won't be too hard to make a new function. Then we can say function, just so we can keep everything organized, player collect. And this function is going to basically just say player dot collect the item that is equal to the stick. And then we can say something like await. We can set a little timer here. And this timer is going to allow us to, give it a second before it disappears. So it doesn't disappear, instantly. So we'll just put like 0.01, like super, super quick. And then we'll say timeout, and then we'll say self.queueFree. And then if we go to our stick collectible, we go to the 2D scene, and we go to our inspector, and then we change the item into our stick item. Well, actually, we got to make a resource. So we can click on our little resource button. We can say inventory item, and this item is going to be named stick. And this texture is going to be our art, our environment, our stick. And then we can say save as. We want to save this as stick. And we want to save this into our inventory and into our items. And then if we go to our stick inspector and we load our stick resource, then we go to our world and we throw some sticks into the world just randomly around. We'll add like 3 sticks just like this, one here and then one more, and this stick will be down here. Move our players to the bottom, we go to the world, we play. Well, you can see we have sticks and we have an empty inventory. We walk on top of a stick, you see it disappears and it is in our inventory. Walk over the stick, it disappears. Walk over the stick, it, you know, and then we collect apples. They'll go into slot 2, right? Just like this, and that is a working inventory. You can see it stacks, but like, is it still gonna work if we collect the apples first? Well, let's test it out. So we go, inventory empty, collect an apple. You can see that the apple pops up. Collect another apple. You can see that the apple pops up, and if we collect all these sticks, it works just as good, and it says 2 and 3. And that is how you create a working inventory in Godot. I want to thank you so much for watching this inventory series and these last 2 videos about inventory. I really do hope they helped. If you have any questions or anything that you want to know or anything that you need help on, then please let me know in the comments down below and I will get back to you. If this tutorial did help, then please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on this video so YouTube knows that it is a helpful video and it can help other aspiring game developers who are trying to learn to make their own inventories as well. But I want to thank you so much for watching. Next video is going to be episode 6 and it's going to be about ranged combat. So I'm excited for that. But thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye.